a high school track meet, a moment of tension in a case that ended with a murder conviction, now shaking up national conversation. Karmelo Anthony has been found guilty in the fatal stabbing of 17-year-old Austin Metcalf and sentenced to 35 years in prison. But the biggest question is still being debated online is simple. Was this self-defense or a situation that spiraled out of control in seconds? Tonight, we break down what the jury saw and what the public is saying right now. Hello everyone, welcome to this edition of Viral. I'm your host as always, Kendra Dix here. Glad you can join us here on Viral. Like you said, we're going to start with this. And also, don't forget to subscribe. Subscribe is caring. Tell a friend, call a friend, hit that subscribe button so you won't miss a thing. Let's start with the actual came out in court. The incident happened at a Texas high school track meeting in 2005 during a rainy delay. Students were gathering under the tents when a confrontation broke out. Witness testified that Anthony was asked to leave another team's tent area. The situation escalated into a quick argument. Things then turned physical. Prosecutors told jurors that Anthony pulled a knife during the confrontation and stabbed Austin Metcalf once in the chest. The medical testimony confirmed the wound was fatal, penetrating the heart. The jury also reviewed surveillance and cell phone footage that helped reconstruct moments before and after the stabbing. The defense argued something very different, that Anthony was confronted and felt threatened and acted in self-defense in a chaotic moment. But prosecutors pushed back hard, arguing that the level of force was used not justified under circumstances described by witness. Anthony did not take the stand in his own defense. At deliberating, the jury returned with a guilty verdict for murder. He was later sentenced to 35 years in prison. Wow, that's a lot. Like I said, if it's going to escalate like that, both men should have had, especially, it's kind of contentious because both men could, still be alive, and, tensions happen and stuff. Arguments happen. It's just best to kind of, calm the storm down. But unfortunately, that's how it happened. And the dude got 35 years in prison. Let's hear now online. This case has exploded to two different variant narratives. On one side, many argue that the jury got it right. Some say the evidence show a situation where disagreement escalated too far, too fast, and that bringing a knife into the school environment crosses the line. Like we said, well, let's hear what you people had to say on what people say.
Breaking news. The Karmelo Anthony verdict is in, and he has been found guilty in under 3 hours. Now, it is a very simple fact pattern. And the damning fact is not simply that Karmelo Anthony told officers right away that he did it, that there was nothing alleged about it, and he said it was self-defense right away, but it was a head-on plunged knife into the chest of the victim, another teenager. You know the fact pattern. Karmelo Anthony, young black kid at a track meet. Some white kids tell him to get out of a tent that was there for the rain, but it was only for their team and not his team. And he says something to one, and one says something back, and there's someone else there, and a knife comes out, and Karmelo Anthony plunges it into the chest of another teen, and he dies. Is it self-defense? The jury was all white. The prosecutors say this is a race-neutral crime. This is a very fraught situation that now is going to have these obvious indications of bias. Why did it have to be all white? Why couldn't it have black jurors? What does race neutral mean? What did it mean in this context? Is this justice? Does 3 hours mean that it was just a simple pattern and he had acknowledged it and it couldn't be seen any other way? If a black jury had been involved, they also often find black defendants guilty. Would black people on the jury have made a difference? Should there have been black people on the jury anyway? This has been covered constitutionally. Do you have to have mixed race to reflect the race of the defendant and anybody else? No. No, that is not a constitutional protection of equal protection or of due process. If you're black, you don't have to have black jurors. If you're white, you don't have to have white jurors. However, there can be issues based on bias. Is this one of those cases?
There's some people in my comments that are like, I don't know how the Karmelo Anthony thing became such a black and white issue. I don't know why it's a race thing. Why are you making it a race thing? A lot of us are the children of Trayvon. We're literally Trayvon's children. We came up in an era where we saw George Zimmerman stalk Trayvon Martin, who was walking home from the fucking convenience store with Skittles in his hand and a hoodie on. We saw as George Zimmerman stalked him as he was walking home and then got in a physical altercation with Trayvon Martin, who defended himself. And then George Zimmerman, who was told by the police and told by all these people, stop stalking him. The dispatcher literally said, sir, do not follow him, shot him to death. And then got off. So you're like, how did this become a black and white thing? Because we see a two-tier justice system where some stuff is self-defense and other stuff is not self-defense. So I really hope that answers the question for you. And there's a lot of other examples that I could give at this point. But please don't act dumb, and please don't act like dense on how you don't understand why this is such a big deal to the black community. Like, yeah.
Okay, so boom. So the prosecutor in this case said that mercy to the guilty is cruelty to the innocent. I want that to sink in for a bit. In less than 3 hours, a jury decided that Karmelo Anthony was guilty of murder for the stabbing, unaliving of Austin Metcalf at a track meet in April of 2025. Additionally, the same jury came back in less than 3 hours and decided that Karmelo Anthony should spend 35 years in prison for this incident. Now in Collin County, Karmelo Anthony will have to complete at least half of his time before he is eligible for parole. It is now lost on very many people that the halfway markers are roughly around 17 some years, like 17 and a half years, which is roughly the same age that these two young men were when this incident occurred. I want to also point out that there were no black people on this jury, and the jury came back with a murder conviction, that there was an option of murder and there was also the option of manslaughter. Now, murder is an intentional crime, meaning that you intended for this outcome. You intended to unalive somebody. So that means that for 3 hours, the jury deliberated, which in my experience, that means maybe one or two people had kind of held out and weren't quite sure, and most everybody pretty much had their mind made up. But in less than 3 hours, deliberated and decided that they did not believe in any shape, way, or form that Karmelo Anthony could have felt any type of fear in that moment, which prompted him to act in the way that he did. That they did not buy his defense, that he was trying to defend himself in any which way, right? Because even with a manslaughter conviction, which is a lesser offense of murder, manslaughter is not an intentional murder. It just says you were reckless in your behavior, right? You did something that was dangerous, and you didn't do it because you intended for someone to be harmed. Seriously, you knew somebody could get harmed. You knew this could end up in an unaliving, for example, but that wasn't your intent. You were just reckless. You were acting without really thinking, and that was the outcome. So they did not have any remorse and did not believe in any aspect of this young man felt any kind of fear. Now, Judge Roach, the judge in this case, is retiring this year. This is his last year on the bench. He did not allow any cameras in the room, so all the information that we were able to gather is based on what people who were reporting from inside the courtroom were able to jot down in their notes and bring out to us. Metcalf's mother, Megan, gave her victim impact statement, and she says to Karmelo, "You should be lucky you got 35 years because I got a lifetime." I have so much to unpack with this case, but I want to hear from you first. So first, I want to know, what questions do you have? 2, do you think the sentencing was fair? And 3, do you agree with the verdict?
In America, it's perfectly legal to chase down a black 14-year-old teenager that you falsely and inaccurately accused of stealing $4 worth of merchandise from out of your gas station. As you chase him for 150 yards and he never turns his back to you because he's desperately trying to get away, you can murder him in cold blood by shooting him in his back. And you know what'll happen 2 to 3 years later? You'll be found not guilty on a technicality during trial. But if you're a black teenager who gets assaulted by a group of white men, being Austin and Hunter Metcalf, then you can use a weapon, the closest thing to you, to stab them and get them up off you to discontinue the assault, and you'll be found guilty of murder. Even though you never started an argument, you never got physical with anybody, you only defended yourself. This is the America that we live in. In America, even though it completely compromises the integrity of the court case, your judge can be close personal friends with the father of the deceased, and nobody bats an eye. It's all perfect trial and, non-biased and a fair trial, essentially. What we have here is racist white people who are eager and thirsty to see a black child lose his life to the court system. And, they're rejoicing in this decision, not even thinking of how Austin Metcalf simply could have kept his hands to himself and not been so physically imposing to somebody. Because in all retrospects, I think I could have done a better job of arguing the fact that, well, if this was a 5'6", 120-pound woman, would she be well within her right to stab somebody that puts hands on her, not knowing whether or not this said person is going to escalate violence when they're known to be a violent criminal offender? It would make perfect sense, but we're dealing with a young black man, so you can't expect fair treatment at all in this country. I really don't know what to say. I can't say I'm surprised at all. But you're going to see a lot of racism in this coming week. You're going to see a lot of negativity from white people rejoicing in the fact that a black kid loses his life to a system that never was trying to give him a fair trial in the first place. It is what it is, right?
I'm going to go ahead and say the shit that y'all scared to say about this verdict today. The reason why Austin felt so comfortable putting his hand on Karmelo, even though Karmelo has set a boundary, is because white people still see us as their property. Oh, yeah, even though we're not in slavery, they still look at us as their property, honey. The fact that we even want to set up a boundary, to them, that's us having audacity for trying to have bodily autonomy. And we already know Caucasians are curious creatures. So they're going to test the limits. They're going to poke the bear. They're going to push the button. And they're going to cross the line every damn time. And it's always going to start off small as a little microaggression, like mispronouncing your name, not calling you by your title. Then all of a sudden it starts to get physical. And even though they put their hands on us first, even though they pressed our buttons first, we will always be seen as the aggressor. We will always be the villain, not the victim. Because let me tell you why. Because being black and existing is a form of resistance to these white supremacists. Every system that they set in place was meant for us to fail, but yet we have prevailed. We still find joy, even though we're faced with injustice. We still find hope when things are hopeless. Let me say this in closing to any Caucasians watching this. Like a bow, I don't care how far you try to pull us back and back and back. The kinetic energy in the black community will always propel us forward.
Karmelo Anthony is found guilty and faces 5 to 99. That's 5 to life. BT dubs. 5 to life in prison because I was pushed first. That already doesn't sit right with me, right? Okay, let me take it a step further. We're painting him as the aggressor because he had a knife, but he was pushed first? I guess I'm just trying to make sense of it because it just doesn't make sense, right? Right? Because whenever, kids get hit, you tell your kid to what? Hit back? Or do you tell them to just sit there? Or do you tell your kids to, keep their hands to themselves? Because, what happened to that rule? Okay, I'm just so confused.
They gave Karmelo Anthony 35 years in prison. They gave that baby 35 years in prison. And I'm so sick of these white racist people underneath everybody posts that is praying for Karmelo Anthony, that wanted him to be found not guilty or at least guilty for manslaughter. These people are so racist and they are blatant with it, y'all. They are blatant with it. And that's why when I see them videos, of us helping them, are they kind? And like the black man who was on a cruise ship and that fucking old ass white man or whatever white lady fell off that fucking cruise boat and the workers for Carnival was moving slow and that man jumped in the water and risked his life to go save that white man. That type of shit be pissing me the fuck off. Because although there are some really, really good white people out here who don't have that hatred in their heart, it's just shit like this make me can't think past school. Stuff like this make me think I don't want to do nothing for nobody that's of that risk. I'm sorry, y'all. I'm sorry. I remember growing up, my dad, he used to couldn't watch anything with slave movies and stuff like that. He said, because I work around a lot of white folks. He said, and if I watch stuff like that, it's going to put some stuff in my heart that I don't want there. But this the type of stuff make you want to feel those feelings and not give a fuck about them bitches. Because deep down, no matter how good they is, I know they still have that superiority complex and they know that they are better than me or they think they're better than me. I hate to see us do good for them. Because shit like this is how they really feel about us.
We not being slow about this, right? We know that boy finna go to jail. Right. I mean, we live in America. That boy finna go to jail. Now, all we asking is that y'all don't charge him with outrageous when he was being attacked. Negligent homicide might be a more appropriate charge, but yeah, we not slow. We live in the United States of America, and America ain't slow either. That's why they gonna charge you with something, and some people gonna be satisfied with that. But if they was to acquit this boy, let him go after this incident, it's gonna start inside. I'm telling you, they not stupid. They know how to play this game and how to stop shit beforehand. They probably already ran it through an algorithm. At the end of the day, yeah, he going to jail. We hate it for him. Karmelo Anthony, yeah, we hate it for him, but let's be real, he going to jail. We live in the United States. I keep saying that. It's because that's a fact.
Here's the thing with the Karmelo Anthony case. I don't think that most Black people are saying this young man should not have any consequences or do a certain amount of time or pay his debts to society for what he did. I really don't think most Black people are saying that or trying to suggest that. What I think Black people are saying is what Black people have always said, is that there is not fair treatment with the justice system. If you're not familiar with legal jargon, first-degree murder is, one, supposed to be the hardest to prove in court. They don't just hand out first-degree murder charges. And that's because the prosecution has to prove that it's deliberate, it's premeditated, like you knew. You woke up this morning and you said, I'm going to go and do that. And then that's what you did. It implies that there is a moment of reflection and thought and intention and plan put into executing what's about to happen. Manslaughter is when you somebody, but that was not your intention. You did not go in there. You didn't wake up this morning and say, this is what I'm finna do today. And that's the main difference between first degree and manslaughter. And there are even two different levels of manslaughter. There's voluntary manslaughter and involuntary manslaughter. Voluntary manslaughter implies that, like, you went into a rage or you were provoked, or like a lot of crimes of passion. You walk in on your nigga with another bitch and you feel me, like crime of like you did not wake up this morning and say that I'm gonna get my nigga going, but that's what happened because of whatever the circumstances was. Involuntary manslaughter implies that you caused someone's death because of like recklessness and just negligence, like a DUI. You was driving drunk, you killed somebody. That's involuntary manslaughter. That you was not even trying to do that. You was trying to go home, but you shouldn't have been in that car drunk, and now somebody's dead. And I have explained all this to you because these are the categories of murder. Based on what we know about that situation, that boy absolutely should not have received a first-degree murder charge. And again, no one is saying that he needs to go home. But what we are saying is what we've always been saying. It's not fair, and y'all know it's not fair. Because at the end of the day, all three of these are still murder charges. All three of these are still, you're going to have consequences. Isn't the whole idea of the justice system, the consequences should fit the crime? But if you're not categorizing the crime correctly, then we already not doing shit right. And that's the point. That's the unfair treatment that Black people are talking about. Y'all won't even categorize the shit correctly. You took it straight to the worst one.
So Karmelo Anthony was just convicted guilty of murder. Not manslaughter, murder. Yeah, and it was a very quick verdict, too. All the testimonies from defense and prosecution, like, he was cooked. Well, what'd you expect? There were no Black people on the jury, so... There were people of color on the jury, though. And does that not count? Or I just think somebody with a different skin tone would have gotten manslaughter. He was 17 at the time, so... Somebody else would have had pepper spray in their bag. Pepper spray. Like if he had sprayed Metcalf in the face with pepper spray, it would have been a suspension at best, but we wouldn't be here. Well, I'm sorry, but that red hat means you're not morally or ethically qualified to make any decisions about this case. Maybe not, but I'm willing to take a stab at it.
So Karmelo just got found guilty, and, you know, I'm not surprised at all. I was already, like, preparing myself for the worst for this young brother. This is my thing, though. America is so funny because they will understand self-defense in situations like George Zimmerman with Trayvon Martin, or as we just seen, Rick Chow with Cyrus Belton, even though he chased someone down, shot him in the back. And they went through all the loops in their brains to understand self-defense in that moment. But they can't understand when it was Karmelo. Like, it's just, man, you know? And then it's the fact, like, these folks already knew. Like, it only took them 2 hours to deliberate and come to a conclusion on this case. What was the point of even having this trial? An all-white jury? Like, he was already doomed from the start, dog. But everything we've been dealing with lately is just symbolic, man. With Rick Chow and Cyrus Belton, if you don't defend yourself and you try to get away, you're going to die. But if you defend yourself and you stand your ground like the American they claim we are and the rights we have, you will be punished. So it's like, damn if you do, damn if you don't, dog. Man, I don't know.
The judge was not messing around when he said he wanted this trial wrapped up quickly. Because yesterday, on a Saturday, they had court. Now, on this rare court session, day 3 of the Karmelo Anthony murder trial, the prosecution officially rested their case after having called 21 witnesses to the stand. Once the state rested, the defense immediately began presenting their case. Medical examiner was on the stand and had graphic testimony. Dr. Elizabeth Ventura, she testified that Austin suffered a gaping 2-inch stab wound to the left side of his chest, and that the knife perforated the bone at the center of Austin's chest, pierced through the protective sac surrounding his heart, and penetrated his heart's right ventricle. Dr. Ventura stated that the wound was not survivable and confirmed that the official manner of death was homicide. At one point, the judge issued a warning regarding the graphic nature of the evidence as they were about to show autopsy photos, and they said that Austin's parents and several of his family members left the courtroom. 4 teenage athletes testified on Saturday. One 16-year-old that testified said that during the rain delay, Anthony's team didn't have a designated tent, so he went into the Memorial's designated team tent. When repeatedly asked to leave, the witness says he heard Anthony say,
"There isn't a black American on earth that is surprised by what just happened to Karmelo Anthony. In a stand your ground state, while standing his ground. Not one black face in that jury box, not one peer, not one person who has ever navigated this country in melanated skin. And if you think that doesn't matter, then you haven't been paying attention to the last 400 years of American history, because you don't want to. This is not new. This is the system working exactly as it was designed. The reason this keeps happening, the reason we keep standing at these grave sites, at these courthouses, at these press conferences with tears and signs and hashtags is because Black America doesn't have any collective political or economic power. When you don't control the legislation, when you don't control who sits on the bench and who draws the jury pool, your outrage, however righteous, does not move this racist machine. Liberation has never been given. It has always been taken. And until Black America builds the kind of consolidated economic and political power that makes the cost of this oppression too high to sustain, we will keep seating all white juries. They will keep shooting us in the back or in our beds while we sleep. They will keep saying they feared for their lives after they do it. Black folks, I need you to stop calling it a boycott. We're not boycotting anything. You need to circulate the black dollar forever for our economic power. It's not a boycott. It's a replacement. We will circulate the black dollar. We will build an infrastructure. We will govern ourselves because we have no choice. This pathetic society will never change. They are still raising their children to be just as racist as they are. Racism is a learned behavior. You understand? Anti-blackness is deeply rooted in every ethnic group, even within our own community. That's what we're dealing with. You want to talk about allyship? Stop trying to infiltrate our organizations and focus on stopping your people, your community, from being racist degenerates. Do the work in your own community. I love you, black man. I love you, black woman. Knowledge is power. Power to the people.
I feel for him. I don't believe that it is right that what's happening to him. In what world would you live in where a white kid would be getting convicted by an all-black jury? That would never happen.
I hate to say it, but I think a lot of these people are here just because of the color of Karmelo's skin. I think it's they're making it a racial issue where I don't feel like it was a racial issue.
That person, and so I'm heartbroken what this case has done to these children, that they paraded onto the stand with certain talking points. A child that was friends of both Austin and Karmelo. This all around was heartbreaking, and it makes me wonder where we're going as a nation. So there's so much more that can be said from today going all the way back to last Monday. I had hope that Collin County was going to do this fairly when they started voir dire on Monday and Tuesday. I really did. I wanted to believe again. I wasn't even sure if Karmelo was guilty or innocent because I wasn't team Karmelo or team Austin. I was team, I want the truth. I want facts, truth, evidence, law. I didn't know if he was innocent or guilty. I didn't know if the state and the judge was going to play this fair. I didn't know that until Saturday. On Saturday, I knew where this was going to go. And I had to tell my son that was attending with me. It's like, maybe he can still get off because I don't care about the facts and the law. And they didn't care about the facts, law, and evidence. I told him on Saturday, prepare yourself, he's going to be convicted. There was a wide range. He could have gotten probation. There was, I think it's called sudden passion. That was allowed to be a part of the jury charge. If they did sudden passion, this is where you don't have time to collect your thoughts in the moment, and really bad things happen. The jury rejected that. Prosecutor encouraged that they reject that. It could have been a probation situation. It could have been 2 years. It could have been 99 to life, and they settled somewhere in the middle at 35 years.
So what message do you have to black and brown youth that are in Dallas, Texas, the larger metroplex, about just moving forward? What message do you have?
Sadly, as a mom, again, who's raised black male sons, and I will say this, and I don't want anyone to make it about my personal experience, but as a mother who declined to fight for my own child when he was found allegedly hanging from a tree in Oklahoma and then not hanging from a tree, 2 different stories from the same police department, I declined this very moment right here because I didn't want it to be a race war. His girlfriend was white, and I see what we do as a nation when these situations happen, and as suburban black people, we do life together. Friends, business partners. I didn't want a race war. I still don't want a race war, and the Anthony family does not want a race war. I want to be clear about that. They would want y'all to pray, they would want y'all to be peaceful, but I have to be responsible as a mom and say, tell your children, if you are black and brown, you do not have a right to self-defense. If somebody tells you to move in a place that you are lawfully at, and they don't look like you, the conversation I'm going to have with my 21-year-old when this is over is the laws don't apply to you. You just move. You don't have a right to self-defense. Not here. That's the responsible message I would say. And I'm not saying that for us to be angry and riot and be violent. I'm saying that because that is what we've observed, and that's the message that was shared today. Marlena and Christopher. M-A-R-L-A-N-A. Last name Christopher. C-H-R-I-S-T-O-P-H-E-R.
Christopher, where are you from?
Well, I think it is. I mean, again, it's something. It's something. I would have preferred to see a little more, honestly, just going on the halftime. I mean, thing is, he'll still be a young man when he gets out. Hopefully he can do right, do good, go the right way in prison, not go the wrong way in prison. and come out and have hope. You know, that's what I'd like to see, honestly. It's a tragedy. I mean, to me, it's a tragedy on both sides. You know, you got one family who has literally lost a child they'll never see again, and then you got another family who's losing their kid. You know, the young man's going to be gone for a while, but at least they're going to get him back. You know, at least they get him back. You know, so.
Karmelo Anthony's parents just left the courtroom in tears. Not good for the home team. This is what's interesting. Under Texas state law, in the civil case, he was 17 when he did it. The parents, out of neglect, are going to be liable. So the parents of Austin Metcalf can get all that money. All that money. Take out that house. They're going to get it all. Yes, thank you, Jesus. Justice.
Number one, I find it funny that these folks become fluent in the law whenever it's involving us, but when it's Orange Man, they act like they goddamn illiterate. Number two, look at this smile right here. It illustrates the consumption of black suffering. It's their entertainment right now. Ha ha, monkeys chipping out, y'all mad. Number three, for all y'all confused, in this visual, only one of these people was found guilty. Can y'all guess which one it was? Number four, how did all the eligible jurors that look like us get dismissed in this trial? Number five, they say they want to conserve the Constitution. At the same time, they're celebrating that this man did not get judged by his peers. It was all white people. Number six, the same folks that believe Kyle Rittenhouse was justified with having a third at a goddamn rally believe that Karmelo Anthony should have never had a knife on him at a goddamn track meet. This is the most inconsistent logic I've ever seen. Number seven, think about it. While the parents still trying to process this conviction, they already celebrating how they can take something else from this family.
Verdict is in. Karmelo Anthony was found guilty of murder, and he was sentenced to 35 years in prison, with the possibility of parole after 17 and a half years. Why 17 and a half years? That's Texas law. He has to serve at least half of his sentence before he's eligible for parole. I think that's fair. Honestly, it's more than I thought it was going to be. Now that this is over, the biggest questions we need to be asking ourselves as a community and a society, two questions. Number one, what happened? And number two, what can we learn from this? But before we even get to that place, some of y'all need to get before God and beg him to clear the racist fog in your brains. To make it very clear, this case had nothing to do with race. Okay, Austin didn't ask Karmelo to leave because he was black, and Karmelo didn't stab him because he was white. But people on the outside made this about race. Let us be honest with ourselves. A lot of you latched onto this case, not because you cared about Austin or his family, but because Karmelo being black validated the preconceived racist ignorance you already held about young black men. And on the flip side of that, a lot of you, the only reason you latched onto this case, not because you truly believe that Karmelo was innocent or you believe that he did defend himself, but you only cared or supported him because he was black. If he were white, you wouldn't have cared. So do what you need to do to get to the altar, get on your knees, go before God and beg for forgiveness. Ask him to check your heart and rid it of anything impure, because the absolute nasty that I have seen over the last couple of days is insanity. It is 2026. Why on X/Twitter am I being called both a Ritz cracker minus the Ritz and the N-word in a span of minutes? This case brought out the absolute worst in some of y'all, and I don't know what you need to do to, come to terms with that and then rectify it, but get on that with the quickness. I've had several people ask me, Savannah, are you going to share your opinion on the case? What do you want me to say? Do you want to hear my opinion, or do you want me to just validate yours? Are you here to make sure I'm on the right side? There are no sides. Nobody won. 2 boys lost their lives, one to the grave, one to the prison system. 2 families shattered and broken. 2 mothers mourning their sons in different ways. 2 futures gone. No one won here. My heart breaks for both of these boys, because what happened to Austin was absolutely senseless. No one should lose their life over something so stupid. If it had happened because Karmelo Anthony made a decision, he made one decision, on track to graduate, ready to go to college. All of that gone because he made a split-second decision. The problem with young boys this age is they're impulsive, okay? They're aggravating, goofy. They don't take anything seriously. They're prideful, hard-headed. They don't listen. And they have no real concept of consequences. They can't really fathom or make sense that their actions can have lasting and permanent consequences. What happened here? A young kid brought a knife to a track meet. Why? We may never know. Chances are it was already in his bag. It was just there. He wasn't even thinking about it. And then he made a decision to stab somebody. Something that could have totally been prevented if he had just left when they asked him to. Austin shouldn't have put his hands on him. Austin wouldn't have put his hands on him if he had just left when he was asked to leave. And I can already smell the comment section. He didn't have to leave. He wasn't legally obligated to leave. They couldn't make him leave. No, you're right. He didn't have to leave. He wasn't legally obligated to leave. He didn't have to leave. But he should have. You don't have to keep your mouth shut at the movie theater, but you should. You don't have to move out of the way, step to the side a little bit if you see someone coming at you on the sidewalk, but you should. You don't have to leave a place where you're legally allowed to be, but if the situation no longer serves your best interest and your mind and your gut is telling you, hey, this is not a good place for us to be, you should leave. The difference between have to and should have is wisdom. Had he not been so prideful, instead of sitting in a defendant's chair fighting for his life, he would be sleeping till noon, recovering from his first year at Morehouse, while the Metcalf brothers would be graduating high school and getting ready for their first year at UT. I assume they would have gone to UT. They look like UT boys. And don't be stupid enough to think, oh, that could never be my boys. Yes, it could. Yes, it could, because everyone has moments where their pride is running faster than their common sense, where they lack wisdom. We all fall short. That could have been anybody. What do we learn from this? Well, if you have sons, white or black, it doesn't matter. You need to start teaching them, especially if they're around this age, what it means to have wisdom and what it means to operate in wisdom. Making sure they know that they don't have to surrender to their pride and that letting go of their pride doesn't make them weak. Ultimately, I think a lot of us could stand to be less judgmental and more compassionate. Some of y'all will never know what it feels like to come face to face with the end of your life, a foregone conclusion manufactured by your decisions, and then beg God for a second chance. Some of y'all will never know that kind of pain or fear and count yourselves lucky. There are no sides here, okay? You can have compassion for both. Your heart is big enough to break for both.
Karmelo Anthony has been found guilty in the trial where he was being charged with unaliving Austin Metcalf. And honestly, this video was hard for me to make because I feel like there were so many injustices that went on during this trial. Now, just to be clear, I am not celebrating the loss of anybody's child because I cannot even imagine, and I'm sure that that was difficult for his family to experience. And also, we've seen in so many public cases where white men have used the claim of self-defense after unaliving a black boy, a black man, a black woman, and have been acquitted of a crime after not even being touched by said person. And not only that, in this trial, we have an entire white jury who is responsible for determining the fate of a young black man when the person who was unalived looks just like them. How can we be sure that there was no bias in the decision that they made? And on top of all of that, his guilt had to be proven beyond a reasonable doubt. Beyond a reasonable doubt. So if most of the witnesses from the prosecution side told varying stories, how could there not be room for reasonable doubt? How? And the last thing I'll say is I find it jarring that there were no school staff that were held accountable. Because who was responsible for supervising these kids during this event? Why were they left alone to a point where it was able to escalate this far that a child lost their life? There's a reason that adults are supposed to be present in a school, and it's because teenagers are teenagers. And your job is to make sure that things like this don't happen. I'm heartbroken behind this.
Like I said, others focus on accountability, school safety, and the verdict send a message about violence at youth events. But there's another side to the conversation. Supporters of the defense argue that this was a split-second decision in a chaotic moment. They said the key issue is perception. whether Anthony felt reasonably threatened by that in that moment. Others, whether the situation was properly escalated earlier, verbal conflict, whether the outcome was avoidable. And then there was the third group, less focus on sides, more focus on tragedy, saying that both families lost something permanent regardless of legal outcome, which that's what I'm trying to get to. Both sides of the family lost something. The dude in jail, about to go to prison for 35 years, and one dude, he's no longer here, and that could have been avoided. Well, across social media, the debate isn't slowing down. It actually testifies as clips, commentary, and courtroom breakdowns continue to circulate. Like we said, at the end of the day, the jury has to decide one thing. Was this self-defense or an unlawful use of deadly force? They conclude, and it crossed the line into murder. But outside the courtroom, the conversation is far from settling. This case now sits at the intersection of youth violence, self-defense law, and how quickly violence can turn into irreversible. And the bigger question remains, in this situation that unfolded in seconds, how do you fairly judge unintent after the fact? The debate is now happening everywhere. Alright, thank you all for watching this edition of Viral. I've been your host, Kendra Dick, saying so long. Thanks for watching Viral. A high school track meet turned into the courtroom headline. Now the jury has spoken. Karmelo Anthony has been convicted in the fatal